All right, hi everybody. It's me again, that guy who does the thing every Friday. What is that thing? It's from 901 Newhouse Drive, Look Alive Studios, the Resport podcast, aka the RRS pod. This week, I'm not doing the NBA end of season awards like I said I might do because, well, I looked at it and I'm like, I got another week so I can push this off for a little bit longer. Plus, I think that might actually work better as a written piece the more I looked at it than audio vomit, like the normal stuff I do in the podcast. So, because I got to get back to written stuff at some point in my life. You know, there's also that website that I'm paying for. So, I'm going to do that. I'm going to write it out. That's going to be a piece. End of season NBA awards. And I'll pour over that for like a week and then post it. Plus, I didn't really think I could fit it in the show this week with how much actual, like, newsworthy stuff happened. Those, like, lists, and if you ever see me do a list, like I did the quarterback thing a couple weeks ago, and I talked about LeBron's destinations, things that are not immediately based on, like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, not, I don't know, I'm an idiot, or I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Things that are not, like, currently happening, not hip with the youth. If I talk about that stuff, that just means there's nothing going on or nothing I felt like talking about. So, but this week is not like that. This week we have lots of nonsense, things that are here and there, mostly here, but also there. Starting with, I have an update about the show. Well, I mean, not really the show, but, well, kind of. Newhouse is going to be building, I guess somebody cut off a nice piece of bread for Newhouse at a Syracuse HQ. So they're going to be spending a poop ton of money to build new studios like the ones that I'm in right now. Because the way this works, you got to go into a building, got to go up to the fourth floor. It's kind of hidden away, which I like because that means there's no one ever here, which works very well for me because if this place was populated, they'd definitely kick me out because I'm being too loud and I'm like bumping all this music on the speakers. I always take the room with both like kick-ass like desk speakers, so I can like blast shit while I shouldn't curse. Sorry, future employers, if you heard that. You found out I'm a bad person. Better it worked out this way than if you hired me. Well, actually, for me, it'd be better if you hired me and then found out I was a bad person. But now you found out ahead of time, so sorry. Sorry about it. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I got the desk speakers so I can blast music. And nobody kicks me out because there's nobody here. And I'm, like, way in the back of the room. It's just, like, a long hallway, like The Shining, where there's just all these, like, doors leading to these little, like I usually say, affectionately refer to these things as studios. It looks pretty nice, like, looking forward. There's, like, a foam wall. There's, like, you know, the iMac. You got the speakers, like I said. You got outlets. You got my laptop. You got the mic and all this stuff. But behind me, it's, like, a real disaster. I mean, there's another foam wall, but there's all these pieces taken out of it. It's all over the place. There's like a air conditioner unit on the side. There's like a window, and at the bottom of it is like this air conditioning thing, but it's all like, you can hear that. It's like falling off, like it's just like barely hanging on there. And there's like a trash can that like nobody ever takes out. But you know, it's mine and I love it. But no, like, I get some benefit out of nobody ever being here, nobody caring about the place, which it just leaves me to go hog wild. But they're building they said, like I saw a thing about it on YouTube from like one of this organizations here that was covering it. And they said, they interviewed somebody who was like overseeing the process, and they're trying to get the funding now for it. But the dean of Newhouse needs to get half the money before they start the process, and get the other half, like, before it's finished or whatever. So she's in the process of getting that first half so they can, like, commence things. But they want to get it done by the fall of 2020, which would be I would be entering my junior year. So I would definitely get some use out of it because I doubt, like, whatever off-campus housing I get is going to have a basement studio or something. So, but, like, yeah, it'll be, like, nicer and just better in every way, and it'll be actually a little bit closer to me. But, I mean, that means there's probably going to be a ton of people there, and they're not going to be happy about a loud Armenian bull trying to do a podcast in the middle of people doing, like, consequential work. Oh, excuse me. Oh my god, I had like a half burp because I just ate Chipotle again, because that's like a tradition. It's literally a tradition now where I get Chipotle before the show. I'm afraid something's going to go wrong. Like, my laptop's going to explode if I don't have Chipotle before. Or at least that's my excuse for it. They even said that part of the reason why they're getting rid of the studios they have now, like the ones I'm sitting in, is because they're literally embarrassed to show it to people who are like here on visits, like visiting the college to see if they want to go here. They don't want to take tours up here because they said it looks so terrible, it's going to disincentivize people from going here. And as I walked in today to do this, there was a tour going down the hallway, so I guess the memo hasn't gotten out. Another thing before I get to sports news, I just tapped the mic. That's unprofessional. Where is it? Oh yeah, Jemele Hill of ESPN fame visited Cuse, and if you follow me on Instagram at BradIsRad117, you would have seen that I had a picture with her from after she was done her speech. Now let me this is kind of an interesting story. At least I thought. I spent like minutes of my life writing it down, so I must thought it was somewhat interesting. She she was like part of the speaker series for this like black frat that has a lot of black leaders come in and talk about empowerment and, you know, fighting the power and everything, and advancing the culture. And I guess Jemele Hill was part of that, but I just went because selfishly I I just wanted to figure out how to do the website better. I mean, like, listen, I stuck out in that auditorium like a marshmallow in a bowl of hot chocolate, if you catch my drift right now. Not a lot of Yakubian devils rolling around besides myself. But I was welcome, and it was open to the public, so I'm like, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this, because that's like a really big person in this industry. And I was surprised that there wasn't a ton of fanfare with her coming. We freaked out, and TJ Miller came for a comedy show, and now Jemele Hill's here and no one cares. Give me a break. But it was an interview, and she was talking. She was really candid about everything. She got questions about her Twitter feud and the ESPN drama and her role there, and she was talking about that openly, and all the way from that to her top 5 MCs. It was all over the place. It was really cool. But like I said, she's the reason she's really there is to talk about female empowerment and black empowerment, and I'm just there just digging at everything I can to to get information for the website. Typical cracker behavior. Sorry about it. But after it was over, I got that picture, so there was people were lining up to take a picture with her in this location off stage. And, I'm waiting, I get my turn. And I was thinking, there's a decently long line here. I don't know how much time she has to stay. But I do know that I care about myself more than I care about anybody else here. So, who am I going to help, So, she was there, and I shook her hand, and I said, hey, and I'm big fan, and thank you for coming and all that. And then I just asked her, the most in-depth, important question I could think of, and then tried, peppered a few follow-ups in there before the man who was standing there taking pictures with people, taking people's phones and then taking the pictures, literally came up to me, and he, put his hand on my shoulder. He's like, yo, are we, what's going on? There's people on the line. Are you cool? And I'm, he didn't, and I guess it's probably good he didn't do this. He didn't say the polite thing of, hey, I can take your picture now. He just literally said, yo, my guy, what are you doing here? Move it along. Because if he had been nice about it, I probably would have pushed Jemele a little bit longer. But, he was like, hey, dude, keep it moving. And I'm like, yeah. And then I made him take 2 pictures, one horizontal, one vertical. Ha-ha! So I got them both, and that was great. But I literally pushed Jemele Hill for, all the time I could before I was, again, I mean, I held it, to be fair, I did hold up the line for an impolite amount of time. I don't know how long exactly, but it crossed into impoliteness however long it lasted. So, just, more Caucasian devil stuff from me. Sorry about it. I represented us well, fellow white people. But that's a little window into my life for the last week, I suppose. But on to sports, everybody, what you're all really here to see. Now, I'm way out of order. I wrote these things out of order. Like I said, no NBA, everything. But I'll tell you what I am going to talk about. Brandin Cooks got traded to the Rams after a 1 year rental cycle in New England. Now, let's just go at it from the two basic angles. Let's talk about what this does for the Rams. For the Rams, this directly fixes the problem for them that I talked about last week, actually, which is that they had no weapons for Jared Goff. And Jared Goff is, like I said, a quarterback you win with, not because of. And, they had, like, Robert Woods and, like, Cooper Kupp and, like, Tyler Higbee and, like who are these guys? Well, now Brandin Cooks is there, so that helps him out a lot. I hate to say this, but now they are really good. Now that's a very good team, at least for next year. Their draft is shot, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but they don't even care because they're excellent. They don't have a lot of holes right now. Their defense is stacked. I guess you could say their linebacking core is a little bit weak because they got rid of Ogletree. But, I mean, the defensive line is going to be good enough with just because of Aaron Donald. Now you add Sue into that mix. And they have, like, elite cornerbacks and elite Aqib Talib still doing awesome and Marcus Peters being who he is. And now on offense, the thing before was, okay, you have Gurley in this killer run game, but at a certain point, Goff is going to have to make some plays, and he doesn't have any weapons to do so. Well, now he has Brandin Cooks, which is a discernible weapon. So, I mean, the game plan for playing against the Rams before all this was you just have to put everything you can into stopping Gurley and the run game. So you can try and slow him down and then limit possessions and chew up the clock when you're on offense and just beat him that way. Which is hard enough. But now, because that already made Goff easier. So, like, if you put everything in the run, you're forcing Goff to beat you with his subpar weapons. But it was still easier for him because, like, again, Goff's job is not very hard. That's another one of my hot takes. Well, now it's a lot harder to shut down Gurley and force Goff to beat you when Goff has Cooks. And you have to account for Cooks in a similar way to how you have to account for Gurley. When you play the Rams and you take the field against their offense, you know that Gurley's the one guy who can, like, by himself, like, score a touchdown at any given time. Cooks isn't quite at that level, but he has a little bit of that effect. And now, in addition to locking your defensive front with things against the run and not selling out your linebackers in coverage or anything so that Gurley can get by him, now you also have to always have, like, you got to play Cooks, like, one-on-one probably. And you need to, well, you don't have to play one-on-one. You need to have, more than two eyes on him at all times, is, I guess, a good way to put it. You can't go one-on-one because he'll beat your guy probably. What you can do is you can try and mix him up with zones, but that's going to make it harder to defend the run most likely, which you can't afford to do because Gurley's an animal. So if you are going to end up in a lot of man-to-man, you need to have your best guy on Cooks and probably, like, free safety, like, looking over that direction as well. And that's just, like, you only have 11 guys, so there's so many resources that you're devoting already to stopping Gurley. Now you got to count for a guy like Cooks, too. This is getting very difficult, and I don't like the fact that they're in the NFC. They're really good now. Like I said, their draft is shot, though, because they now have 0 picks in this draft until we get to the third round. And even then, it's not like a high third rounder. And I mean that doesn't really matter for this season too much because somebody's got, like, Sue's a 1-year deal. That's a rental. I don't know what Cook's deal is like, but I can't imagine it's long-term because he signed it with the Patriots. So what they're doing is interesting. It's almost like they're going for it all this year. Again, the Howie Roseman school of you have your young quarterback, you pay him nothing, so just spend that money that you would be paying your quarterback or will be in a couple of years on skill position players and, like, big money free agents at important positions. I needed that water. So, yeah, they're going to be really good next year. There may be some negative ripple effects to this kind of brash move, like, next year. and years beyond. But we're not going to see that this year, and that's what I care about, because go Birds! They're going to go for another Super Bowl, and now this is hard because the Rams. Thanks, Rams. Other side of this is the Pats. What does this do for them? Well, I'm glad you asked, person who I can't hear because it's a one-sided podcast. Now they have 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks that nobody else is talking about in this year's draft. Now, a lot of people think they are developing a trade package for Odell Beckham Jr. because the asking price was supposedly starting with 2 first-rounders. I don't think they're doing this. I don't think that's their plan here. First of all, Odell Beckham Jr. is the pinnacle of your like typical anti-Belichickian player. He's loud. He's got a personality. He's not a white person. You know, the whole thing. Like, it just doesn't. It just. I'm gonna get in trouble one of these days for saying things like this. It just doesn't work. It's not gonna happen. I mean, and second of all, the 2 first-round picks that they do have are the 23rd and 31st pick. Now, I already talked about last week why the Giants will be dumb to trade Odell Beckham Jr., but say they are dumb enough. And they are like, all right, 2 first-round picks. The 23rd pick and the 31st pick are not a good combination of 2 first-round picks. That might not be enough for them, even if they were willing to trade Odell Beckham Jr., which they shouldn't, like I talked about. Plus, if you sit down and do the arithmetic on this thing, trading away Cooks just to trade for OBJ would mean that Belichick basically thinks that OBJ is about twice as good as Cooks. I don't think he thinks that. I don't think he is. I think Beckham's definitely better than Cooks, but not like twice as good, I wouldn't say. I think the gap is closer than that, especially when you're playing for the Patriots and their system. What I mean by that is... What did I mean by that? I didn't write down the whole problem. God. Trading away Cooks, I can't even understand my own point. Better than OBJ. What did I mean by that? Why am I asking you? Whatever. No, it's because, I remember. It's because you traded Cooks for a first-round pick. You get 1 first-round pick for Cooks. And if you're trading 2 first-round picks for OBJ, and you got 1 for Cooks, you're basically admitting that OBJ is worth twice of what Cooks is worth. Bang! Got it. I know what I'm doing. Oh my God, that should tell you how I'm doing in my classes. Good God. But of course, Belichick does not think that OBJ is twice as good as Cooks because he is Satan in a sweatshirt and thinks that no players have any sort of individual value, as we've seen time and time again. So don't think that for a second. What else is this? Oh, flip my papers. The other theory, the working theory, is that they acquired this pick because the first round is all that matters. They grabbed that first round for Cooks because they want to draft Lamar Jackson to be the successor to Tom Brady. Oh my God. Not the craziest thing I've ever heard. There's a little... Lamar Jackson is definitely going to be drafted too late in this draft. If I had to place a bet right now, I would say we're going to look back in like 10 years and be like, wow, that guy went like 20 spots too late. There's a mini like Deshaun Watson thing going on with him right now where he plays, like this guy plays amazing in college, puts up all the stats you could want, but he's just getting so over-scrutinized now going into the draft compared to these other guys because he was so good in college that his stock is starting to fall like much more than it should. Plus racism and people just saying, oh, he's black, so he should be wide receiver. Like, he's black, so he can't be quarterback. Like, that, that can't happen. All these, like, old, like, scouts and nonsense thinking. The Deshaun Watson thing and racism are both pushing down Lamar Jackson's draft stock as a quarterback, which means that they could actually end up picking him with, like, the 23rd pick or whatever they have. Not unreasonable. I think he could Jackson could end up, again, I'm going to do my draft preview in a little while, but he very well could become the best quarterback to come out of this draft. I wouldn't rule that out at all. That's definitely possible. But I think, I don't know. My question is, does Belichick really want to draft a young quarterback now? Because he might just, after Garoppolo left, if, Kraft made him do it or God knows what, after that, I'm thinking, are we sure Belichick wants to be around for a whole nother quarterback development thing? Because if you take Jackson and he works out and he's a good starting quarterback, I mean, is he really going to leave in the middle of that? I don't think he would. I don't think he could. Belichick's not the type of guy who is just going to wash his hands of the league when he has a fighting chance of winning another Super Bowl. I think he'll leave when Brady's done, now that he doesn't have Garoppolo. As soon as Brady's done, Belichick's like, all right, I'm out. Kraft, you find somebody else. I'm done with football. I'm going to retire. But if he drafts Jackson, even if Jackson falls on his face, Belichick kind of has to stay around. He's basically committing to 2 more years at the very least. Because that's how long of a leash you'd probably give Jackson. But if Jackson's good, like I said, if he's a legitimate starter and gives Belichick a chance to win titles, then that's 10, 12, 14 more years. And is Belichick really going to leave in the middle of a chance to win a title? I don't think he will. That's just not him. He's not going to leave anything unfinished. He's going to find a simple, traditional ending to this thing. And that's really the Brady thing. So that's my doubt, is that it doesn't really, I don't buy that Belichick's going to stay around for a whole nother quarterback development cycle. Maybe that was part of the reason why he was so apt, or he allowed the Garoppolo trade, is because he might just not feel like sitting around and developing another quarterback. He might just be about ready to be done with this thing, and he's just going to ride out Brady as far as he'll take him. The real takeaway here is that the Patriots still very clearly know what they're doing. Like I said, they're not done. They're on the decline a little bit because of Brady's age and because of some of these other things, but they know what they're doing. So don't test them. Don't think they're the senile old man. They still they know what they're doing up there, up in the cold front. Now, other thing I want to talk about. This happened very recently. Conor McGregor decided to fight a tour bus. He attacked. He won't fight anyone in a cage in the UFC, but he will fight a tour bus in an underground parking garage, at the Barclays Center or wherever. So, a lot of people are complaining. They're like, "Oh my God, this is a tragedy." Dana White's like, "Oh, this is disgusting. This is the worst thing that's ever happened in Ultimate Fighting. I can't believe this. I can't allow this. Conor's a stain on the community and a stain on Irish people, and he's a terrible person." Blah 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 blah. This is great. Everybody wins with this situation. The only people who lose are the 2 guys who had their face cut up by the glass from the thing Conor threw at the bus. Other than that, everybody wins. Conor wins, the UFC wins, Dana White wins, and the fans win. Doesn't matter what Dana White tells you. Dana White is a serial liar. He lies professionally. He lies at a professional level. Simple as that. Lies all the time. Go back and check. I didn't feel like putting together a Zaza list of all the examples. It's evident. It is self-evident. It's another a priori truth. It's true by its definition. Look it up. Freak shows sell tickets, as we have learned through the Mayweather-McGregor fight. Sold a ton of in-house tickets and God knows however many pay-per-view buys. Pay-per-view buys. I need to drink more water. This is terrible. I feel so tired. Why am I so tired? I got up. I actually got some sleep last night for once in my life. What is happening? I'm running out of water. It's like a Sahara desert in this freaking studio. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Free shows, sell tickets, Mayweather versus McGregor, pay-per-view buys. Yeah. This is the first time Conor McGregor has had any real relevance to the hardcore UFC fan base since he actually fought, because he hasn't. People, UFC, real like hardcore UFC, I'm not one of these people really, but hardcore UFC fans are pissed at Conor because he talks and did the boxing thing, and in a lot of people's minds, Conor has effectively retired from mixed martial arts because he just won't fight. He was just sitting on those 2 belts ever since he beat Alvarez in like 2016. Hasn't been in a cage. Hasn't really shown any interest in being in a cage. So they don't like him because of that. But now he's relevant again to them because of this, and because of his beef with Khabib Nurmagomedov, if that is how you say it. However you say it, the Russian man, the Siberian animal, whose name starts with a K, that guy. Him and McGregor have some unfinished business, and hopefully now we're closer to that getting solved in a cage. And I know we got her, arrested, whatever. Listen, Conor McGregor is very rich and very famous. He's not going to serve any jail time. I'm confident in that. You kind of have to go if you're an athlete and a very rich and famous one at that. You kind of got to go, like, full O.J. Simpson to, like, actually go to jail for any significant amount of time. And he hasn't really. He's close. He almost killed somebody. Well, a couple of people. Well, almost killed. I don't know. He threw a thing through a window that the glass from the window, like, cut them up. That's not. He didn't. Murder 2 people in his house and then say I didn't do it, but then say I did do it, or I didn't do it, but this is how I did to do it. Please, forget what I just said. I didn't do it. I would do it this way, but ignore that I didn't. I didn't. Yeah. Now there's all this talk of Dana White is going to suspend Conor because he's, oh my God, the integrity of the sport. Oh no. Oh, we did. Oh, what? But now who's going to take us seriously? We're the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're, people expect things from us. First of all, no, they don't. Second of all, Dana will not suspend Conor McGregor because he can't afford to. It's not even really up to him. It's a business decision. Let me tell you why. The UFC is looking for a new television deal. Right now, they have fights sometimes on Fox Sports 1, and that's where they do like their coverage and like studio shows, like analysis. That's where all that happens. That's like on Fox 1. They signed that deal a long time ago. And now they're much bigger because of, like, Conor and Ronda Rousey. Like, they're, like, cross-sport fame. Now they're a lot bigger than they were when they signed that deal. So they're looking for a new one because that one's about to be up. But here's the thing. They were a lot bigger because of Conor and Ronda. But Conor and Ronda ain't been fighting for different reasons. And ever since they have stopped fighting, the UFC has been on a significant decline. Well, what do you do about that? You got this big TV deal. You're trying to make as much money as possible. The UFC sold the company when it was at its peak of value. It has never been as valuable as when they sold it, because that was the peak of Conor's powers and still the peak of Ronda's powers. And ever since then, things have been down for them and really down for the sport. Conor McGregor fighting in the UFC is the only way to get, like, super casual fans. And what I mean by super casual fans, people who have heard of the UFC before, basically. And, like, are, like, culturally aware of who Conor McGregor is and or Ronda Rousey. To get those super casual people to watch and reach those astronomical pay-per-view numbers that you're always after, Dana White, you have to have Conor McGregor fighting on a card. That's the only thing people care about. Conor, recently, his last couple fights have been paired with other title fights, because I think in Dana White's mind, that means, people are going to see Conor's fighting, but then they're going to see these other people who they don't know are fighting for a title, so then that's really going to push them over the edge and make them buy. You could have Conor McGregor as the top of the card in a title fight, and then have, like, a bunch of, like, curling matches below it, and people are still going to buy it because they want to watch Conor fight. They don't care about anybody else, these super casual people. The people who bump up the pay-per-view numbers, because there's not a lot of hardcore UFC fans who are buying all these cards and stuff. The ones that really make them a lot of money, the Conor McGregor cards, that's when casual people pick up the phone and buy. and they haven't had that back since Conor left. So they need Conor to fight. If he wants this television deal, Dana White, which he does, because it's literally money in his pocket, he has to have Conor McGregor fighting to get the best television deal possible. He just has to. So you can't suspend him. What, people are saying, oh, you should suspend him for a year. You're going to sign this deal before the next year, and some network is going to get a bargain. Because when Conor comes back, then you're getting a ton of money, and then people are interested in the sport, and then they show those fights. You can't do that. You have to have Conor fight. It's all people care about. Literally, I'm confident in saying that literally nobody outside of people within the actual UFC organization itself care about maintaining the quote-unquote integrity of the sport in this case. Not like steroids and stuff, but with this, saying, oh, you can't like jump people outside the ring. People get jumped outside the ring all the time in UFC. Not quite like this, but that's McGregor for you. You'll do nothing. Nobody cares. That's what this comes down to. Like, the people who are going to give you the money to grow this business do not care that this happened. If anything, they're like, oh my God, Conor's back in it? Conor's in UFC? This is great. Conor's going to, he must be fighting if they're talking about the UFC. This is awesome. I'm going to be able to watch Conor again. I can't wait to pick up the phone and pay $100 for pay-per-view to watch Conor fight. Nobody cares that the damage this did or the things that did, or this card. Yeah, that's another thing. Nobody cares about this card. Like, the main fight was supposed to be Khabib versus Tony Ferguson for one of the belts that Conor used to hold. And that was another thing, is like, maybe motivate Conor to fight. Obviously, that's all been flipped on its head since all this happened. But still, like, nobody, no casual fan, nobody who was going to, like I said, pay the money to grow this business was going to watch this card. Nobody cares. Like, I'm sorry. UFC can be a very inside baseball thing. There's a lot of technicalities, a lot of details. There's so many names to follow, and things are changing all the time. There's so much like turnover with who's the champ today and who's the champ tomorrow. It changes so much that it's very hard to follow. Like, if you follow the NBA, you know, you hear a team is good, like you hear the Golden State Warriors are good, and then you can confidently know that they're going to remain being good for the next, like, 5 years at least. It's much easier to follow casually because there's not as many things you have to know in order to keep up with the big important information of what's going on. The hardcore fans of NBA and like NFL and really all the major sports are involved in the minutia, in the details of what's going on. So it's a lot easier for casual fans because the big picture stuff is simple and it's everywhere. UFC, if you want to, there's really no such thing as a casual fan of the UFC. If you're a fan of the UFC, you kind of got to put in a little bit of effort to follow this thing and keep track of who's who and what's going on and who's beat who, when the fights, what happened. You got to pay all this money if you want to actually watch the fights. It's terrible. It's not nearly as good of a consumer product as NFL, NBA, and MLB, NHL, all these things. And that's why it's been a step below for so long. But if you want to cross over and get into that stratosphere with those big boys, you need guys like Conor McGregor. You need name recognition. You need cross-sport cultural superstars. And you need consistently winning champions. And Conor's like all that. And he's the only guy like that who's still involved with the UFC at all at this point. Nobody comes close. John Jones had a shot, but he couldn't stay off the cocaine. So that's not happening either. Daniel Cormier, he doesn't have star power. No one's ever seen Daniel Cormier at a press conference and be like, wow, that guy can really talk some trash. No, he's not entertaining. Not nearly like Conor. That's the thing. You know, he's probably like, I mean, he's like a better fighter, I guess. Not a better fighter, but like a classic, what you would think like a martial arts guy to be. But that's, you know, and that's part of the charm of Conor. Conor's just like this crazy Irishman who happens to be able to kick the you-know-what out of people inside a cage. So suspending Conor, if they were to do it, because I think there's a chance they will actually. If Dana White does suspend Conor, it's just an act of stupidity because he's unaware how much Conor means to that sport, which I think he damn well better have an idea by now. or it's an act of arrogance to suspend Conor. Because if he realizes how much value McGregor has to the UFC, which I think he does, and he still suspends him, then that must mean that Dana White believes he can sell pay-per-views with all these other no-name guys, like no problem. He must think that all these other guys can sell just as many pay-per-views as Conor McGregor, which is patently ridiculous. That would be why it's an act of arrogance. But if it's not stupidity, even stupidity, arrogance, either way, it's just ineptitude. It's a poor decision from a business standpoint. Forget morality and all these things. You're going to make way less money through the TV deal and through just pay-per-view stuff, and you're going to lose fans. I don't think, how do you gain fans out of suspending Conor McGregor? Think people who are casually like, man, I don't know about this whole UFC thing. Then they see you suspend your biggest superstar for like a year or whatever, and they're going to be like, wow, this sport has a lot of integrity. Now I'm going to watch. No, you're not. You're trying to make money. You're trying to grow this thing. You're not in any kind of stable, grandfathered-in position like the NFL, like the NBA. You're on the come-up. You can't afford to lose the only thing driving big money for you. After Conor McGregor threw the thing through the bus, and the glass cut up some people, a couple people in the card who were, for Saturday, who were on that bus, who got cut up, now cannot fight. Those people were Ray Borg and Michael Chiesa. I know who Ray Borg are and Michael Chiesa because I follow this stuff a little bit. But I guarantee you don't. You don't know who Ray Borg and Michael Chiesa. You couldn't pick them out of a crowd, which is fine. You shouldn't because, like I said, it's very tedious to follow UFC. Again, nobody cares. Oh, you got to suspend Conor because it damages the card because those were 2 fights on the card. First of all, this card was ruined as soon as Tony Ferguson had to back out because he couldn't fight Khabib because he tore his ACL in a press conference or something. I don't even know. It was done then. It was dead at that point. There's nobody in the world who said, man, I don't know about this card. And then their friend said, or their friend one says, I don't know about this card, man. I don't know if I should buy it. Who's on it really? And then friend 2 says, well, Ray Borg and Michael Chiesa are on it. And then friend 1 says, oh my God, really? No, I can't. Take my money, please, UFC. No one has said that. No one will ever say that for those guys because they're not superstars. You need superstars. I think there's some confusion. I think people inside the UFC might think you're a superstar if you have a title and you maintain that title for some amount of time. No. Mighty Mouse, perhaps the best pound-for-pound fighter in the whole world of MMA. Forget just the UFC. In all of mixed martial arts, Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson, might be the best fighter out of all of them. He's held his title 10 times in a row, or set a record for how many title defenses he has. He demolishes people. He's incredible. But he has no personality, or at least nothing like Conor McGregor. So, nobody cares. I guarantee you didn't know who Demetrius Johnson was. I probably shouldn't be making all these guarantees. I don't know who's listening to this. But even numbers back it up. Nobody knows who Demetrius Johnson is. And if they do, they don't buy his fights. So, trying to make money here, right? That's not a superstar. I'm talking about culture. I'm talking about crossing over. I'm talking about Twitter, Instagram, all these things. Followers, numbers. It's all Conor McGregor. You need that guy. You need him. I really hope they don't suspend him. What casual fans or people who are aware of the UFC or aware of Conor McGregor, what they should really take away from all this nonsense is that we are now closer to seeing Conor fight in the cage than we've been in almost 2 years. That's what this boils down to. Because Conor is back involved with the UFC, showed up to an event, raised hell like he loves to do. His mind is on the UFC. And his mind has not been on the UFC for a long time. It was on boxing. He did all that nonsense. Now it is very clearly back on track, back on the UFC, back where it needs to be. And the people who benefit from that the most are you and I, buddy, because we get to watch him beat the hell out of people. It's going to be great. I just need him back in the cage fighting people. You can't do that if you suspend him. You're not going to make any money. You're going to lose a lot of money, Dana. Don't suspend him. Nobody cares about people are fighting in a cage. Nobody cares about integrity. Anything short of steroids. Nobody cares. It makes zero difference to anybody. So what? I hope you cut up more people. Throw a boulder through the bus next time. I don't give a shit about anybody on that bus. I only care about Conor. I want to see him fight people. I don't care about anybody else. And that's not really me. I'm speaking for the people who you want to buy these cards. And the people who want to buy these cards think exactly like what I just said. They just want to watch Conor. They're entertained by this. They're enthralled by the fact that he's throwing things at buses like a actual crazy person. This is entertainment at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. You got to make money. Enough dollars make sense, my guy. That is what Conor McGregor is all about. That's the letterhead for that guy. Enough dollars makes sense. Dead presidents. Come on. Get with the program here. Okay. Those are my notes for today. But yeah. Like I said, just look out on the website for end-of-season NBA picks for all the individual awards. Sixers have a big game in about a half hour. They play Cleveland, fighting for that third seed. I don't even know if I want them to get the third seed because I'd probably honestly rather play the Pacers than Washington with John Wall back. But, we'll see what happens. I'm sure I'll have plenty of things to bitch about with the Sixers next week. Yep, that's a show. See you next time.